Terry. Start step up the middle of the field, 40. Big hole, 50. He's gone, 45. At the 30. Left sideline, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Jaden Terry. The tank with an answer. Give read option keeper, whole bunch of space. At the 40, got the 35, 30. Up the middle of the field, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Bryce Underwood. And welcome to game night. Nate Dreyer, Chandler Tim with you here. Taking it at the 14-yard line with being offset by Tyson Man. Shimmies over the 30. Burst of speed at the 40. Right sideline 50. Able to get away from the tackle. Walking the tightrope at the 30. 25-20. All alone. 10-5. Touchdown, Grandville. Snapped to Underwood from the gun. Fake handoff on the RPO. Thrown left side. Caught Yarbrough. Sidesteps the defender at the 5. Walks in the end zone. Touchdown, Belleville. The Tigers put it away. 34-17. They're going to go back-to-back. Fake handoff, keeper left side over the 45-yard line, upside the numbers of the 40, 35-30, left sideline 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown, 7 touchdowns for Mason McKenzie, and Caledonia has just about served this one up on ice. All right, hi everyone. Hello, YouTube. Hello, world. This is the MGN Football Tailgate Report. Nate Dreyer, Chandler Timmer, here on Michigan Game Night, and we are another week in the books of the high school football playoffs. And this week we get to start handing out some hardware, CT, but we only get to do that after what is going to be a packed week on MGN. Of course, this show, which is going to feature an interview with Grandville defensive coordinator K.J. Landis, who is one of my favorite people, I think, period, to talk to, especially during football season, but especially on this show. He is always a great wealth of knowledge and enthusiasm, and helps get us ready for Grandville Rockford, and also break down, which we'll have plenty more to break down, the huge Grandville Hudsonville game from last week. And then this week, Rockford, as what our agreement with Michigan Sports Radio is, the Rockford Michigan Sports Radio team will have, unfortunately, I think, for us to some extent, well, yes and no, we'll have the Grandville Rockford game. Where I say yes and no is that we have, I think, my favorite football game to do. We've done it once before, especially from this location. We've got Muskegon, Mona Shores at Hackley. So I guess I'll serve all of that up to you for your opening thoughts, but Grandville Hudsonville, incredible, and a really incredible week coming up this week.
Yeah, coming off a great game this past Friday, and of course, get another matchup in the rivalry of Granville Rockford to preview. Unfortunately, as you said, we won't get to watch that one live, but we'll be keeping up with it, I'm sure, as the night goes along.
We might be watching it live still.
It might be a version of the Whip Round show where we've got a separate broadcast up and we're watching that, and there might be some times where the focus is drifting a little bit. But no, I think we have a really great game too that we'll be out there, and two programs that ton of history there, and two teams that, as we're doing our stadium drafts and our jersey drafts and all the different versions we've done, they've always been on the list.
Yeah, they were both top 4 every time in every draft we did. They were both at the very top.
Yeah, so I think that'll be a great game too. So we shouldn't have any trouble focusing on that one.
Yeah, no, I can't wait. Of course, make sure you follow us across all of the various social media platforms at MI Game Night. Check us out, MichiganGameNight.com, MichiganSportsRadio.com/MGN, and of course our YouTube page here. We are watching this, all places where you can find more information on MGN, and watch us live on Friday night for that, and we'll also through the MGN page on Michigan Sports Radio, we'll link you back, and the Listen Live page on Michigan Sports Radio will have both the Grandville game with Brock Conkle and company on the call as well. So make sure you keep that in mind. Of course, check out MichiganGameNight.com and that page on Michigan Sports Radio. I have a link to the MGN merch shop if you're interested. A bunch of stuff, from just simple with the Michigan Game Night logo, like the hat that he has on. One of the things that you can buy up to, kind of some specific game and even playoff themed stuff as well. Some good winter stuff as we're looking out the window at half a foot of snow that we got this afternoon. Some good heavier and winter stuff for this play. I warned you a couple weeks ago. I told everyone a couple weeks ago to go out and buy some MGN winter merch because I knew it was coming, and now here we are. So if you ignored me, I guess that's kind of what you get.
Late now, yeah.
That's what you get. Regardless, I think that's good for an intro. Everyone's here for KJ Landis. Let's take a break. We'll come back to our Coach's Corner segment, and the always great KJ Landis joins us on MGN. He takes us through the Grandville season so far and the huge matchup this weekend against Rockford.
I'm Randy Hansen, president of Centennial Securities. I've heard it said that professional coaches measure success in rings, college coaches measure success in championships, and high school coaches measure it in titles. But youth coaches measure success in smiles. At Centennial Securities, we're like the youth coach. Our success is measured by the smiles on the faces of our satisfied clients. If you're a Centennial Securities customer, you know what I mean. If you're not, isn't it about time?
Member SIPC and FINRA.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to Game Night, and welcome into Coach's Corner, coming off a big win for the Grandville Bulldogs last week. And joining us this week is a guy that we certainly always love the chance to be able to catch up with. It is K.J. Landis, the defensive coordinator for the Grandville Bulldogs. Coach, thanks, as always, for joining us, just getting out of practice. How are you doing tonight?
Doing really well. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Always our pleasure, like I said, to have you on. And coming off, what a game it was against Hudsonville. Both times this year, Hudsonville providing such a classic. This one a little bit different than the first one. A true grinded out affair. It came down to being able to get that one or two extra stop down the stretch. I mean, take me through the Hudsonville game a little bit from kind of your perspective defensively and as a team finding a way to win that one.
You said it best. Find a way to win. That's something we feel like we've done all years. We haven't been perfect by any stretch, but when we've needed to get stops, we have. And early in that game, they ran it downhill. Really felt like just down our throat, and that's something that we've actually done really well defensively this year. Is we've defended the inside downhill run game, but they had a really good game plan. They came out and executed, did some things that gave our D-line some problems. But I give our kids a lot of credit because at halftime, we made some adjustments. We had a lot of kids that were in the rotation, buying in, moving a lot of things around. And really the guys came together and executed what we need and found a way to get the stops down the stretch that put us in the win column.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a game, like you said, all year long, you can talk about it. This team has been in these close games. They've been in games where maybe you didn't have your A game and things weren't going 100% correct on either side of the ball. But this team has really impressed me with their ability to just find a way, whether it be the Caledonia game, both Hudsonville games, and a ton of other ones. Like, this is a really impressive group. Just finding a way to win. They seem to have that edge to them.
Yeah, we're kind of a grimy group. I mean, you look at our secondary alone, we got some undersized guys, you would say, but our guys really play with a chip on their shoulder, and I think it helps that we've got a group that, even though it's smaller, that's really tight-knit, and they compete with one another a lot. So they kind of play off each other, and the offense and defense isn't quite as split as you would see. There's a lot of OK Red teams that nobody plays both ways. I think in some ways that helps them, but in some ways having our guys constantly in tune with the game and really pulling for one another where there's not that division between the two sides of the ball benefits us in a lot of ways, that our guys can play off that and down the stretch really hone in on finding a way to work together to score the points we need late and get the stops we need late to come out on top.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of can transition right into, we've done this with you kind of the last couple of years, and looking at the defensive side of the ball, the guys that, maybe don't get as much shine in terms of, kind of overall media coverage and breaking down this roster and some of the things, especially by the end of the season like this, that are towards the end of the season and what they've been able to do. So if we can kind of go level by level, let's start, up front, the defensive line. This is a deep group, a lot of different guys, some experienced guys like a Stephen Jackson returning, younger guys like Daniel Wiley and others, stepping in. Just kind of take us through this first off, this defensive line group and the great mix that you guys have had up front this year.
D-line wise, there's so many guys that rotate in, and Coach Duda and Coach Simpson do a great job in-game rotating, keeping those guys fresh, because a lot of those guys do play on the offensive side of the ball as well. So I think having that rotation, having that depth has been critical for our success, and they've really been our best group on the defensive side all year. And I think it starts, Emery Moody and Brett Becker on the edges do a great job of eliminating some of the downhill runs that teams try and run off tackle. They're great spilling the ball out to the edge. And then you get guys like Wiley, who as a sophomore has come in and played fantastic. He's got a great motor. He's got great size and athletic ability. He's going to be really, really good for us. Stephen Jackson, obviously, you said he's a captain. He's a leader. He's as good a D lineman as there is in the OK Red. You can't double team him even. It's been a problem for a lot of teams. He's had a great year. And then you look at Carson Kubzak, was up as a sophomore last year, plays with a great motor again. He's one of those guys that he's not playing on offense, so he plays a ton of snaps for us and has done a great job all year playing on the interior, swiping across the center's face, giving centers problems on a lot of different things. And then Mike Medeiros as well. You talk about Mike, an all-state level lineman on the offensive side. He's impossible to move when he's on defense, and he's a good athlete as well that if you don't double team him, he's going to be able to get off and shed a block and go get to the ball carrier as well.
Yeah, it's been such an impressive group. And then you get to the next level, and this has been one of the group that I think has garnered a lot of discussion in terms of what they've had to do to grow up quick, really, when you look at the linebacker group. Of course, Reed Graverson was in the middle of things, has unfortunately suffered the season-ending injury, but a couple of sophomores that flank him, in Haney and Naraki. Look at guys like Sinkowski, Lauka, on and on and on. There's been a lot of guys at this linebacker group that are really talented, and they've been forced to grow up quick throughout this season.
Well, for sure. You mentioned Reed. Reed, again, is as good a linebacker as there is in the conference. He's a fantastic talent. We're excited for the fact that he's only a junior, so he's going to be back next year. 5.5 games, he had like 73 tackles. That's just impressive. He's a great athlete and a really smart kid. And it helps, his leadership was helping Bray and Naraki grow up quick. Like you said, two sophomores, we called them pups at the beginning of the year, and they're really learning how to hunt. They're kind of contrasting styles. Naraki's a little more boisterous. Bray's a little quieter. Bray's a really good physical downhill linebacker, but then he's actually really good in coverage too, which you don't usually see that combination, but he's just so spatially aware and really intelligent. And then Naraki is so great in the alley, running things down, and he's fast to the ball, and he's a good tackler. Those two are two kids that we're really excited about their future. And then once Reed went out, we saw a few different guys come in. Anton was a huge addition where he came in, and as a senior, every year you say there's going to be seniors that step up that maybe you didn't expect, and Anton was one that had a great offseason, committed to a lot of things, really learned the defense, and was ready at the drop of a hat to step in and play a huge role for us, and he's done a great job. And then when Naraki went out, Lauka did a great job coming in too, and Isaiah was a kid that he played DB on the JV, but he's so big and physical, and we were lacking that linebacker depth. We felt like we needed to move him to linebacker. And again, need to grow up quick, need to learn the position. He's such a good athlete. He's a smart kid, a really high character kid, good tackler. He's had a good year for us as well. So those five have really been huge for us, playing in and rotating in together, trying to get us better.
Yeah, absolutely. You alluded to the defensive back group, maybe a little bit kind of an undersized group, and a group that's, you have a guy like Avon Cott that's a second-year starter coming back, some other first-year, both juniors and seniors, a guy like Josh Crater that has rotated in throughout the year as well. This defensive backs group is, kind of a similar story of, some good experienced leadership, some other younger guys that are coming up and getting into their positions a little bit more.
And I think it's interesting, too. You talk about two kids that started in that defensive backfield last year that aren't in that defensive backfield this year in Cash Ruff and Easton Sadinsky.
True.
Two very talented guys. Cash starting at quarterback. We've lessened his defensive role. Easton obviously has had the injury. He was rotating in the secondary earlier in the year, but injury, taking him out of things, trying to get him back healthy now. But you've seen other guys step up. Obviously, Ethan's stepping up. We've played him at corner. We've played him at safety. He's a very good athlete, maybe the best ball skills in the program. Long, lean, really good tackler, too. He's a wrestling kid who puts that to use. And he's kind of the limit to our size out there in the secondary, it feels like. But so many other guys are gritty. Jackson Sanchez is probably the best example of it. you look at him and he don't look like much, but he's an elite level wrestler. He brings that competitive spirit on. He's a great communicator. He's the boisterous senior that's making sure everyone's in the right spot, really an emotional leader in that secondary. Avon Cott is more the quiet, experienced one that he'll get guys in the right spots, but he's such a lead by example kid. He's always working hard. He knows everybody's position. And then you look at Miguel Rojas. We've moved him all over. He's played corner. He's played safety. He's played nickel. He's super smart and just really confident that he can play anywhere he needs to. Played in the box. Once Reed left, really, he was kind of an answer for us to move to more of that nickel position rather than a 4-3 front. And he's played great there. And then you've also seen, Jaden Terry, Carson Kopko rotating in out of the backfield. They're great coverage players. We just don't want to use them a ton because they're carrying such a load for us offensively. Last one you want to talk about then is Josh Crater. Yep. And at the beginning of the year, he wasn't a full-time varsity kid. We were playing him a couple quarters on JV, quarterback down there. And then we were also bringing him up, trying to get him in some packages and some things. And finally got to the point where we said, he just needs to be up full-time. He's too talented not to be using. He's got great ball skills as well. Gives us a little bit more length back there. And he's also shown the willingness to tackle, which usually you get a sophomore corner that likes interceptions. They don't like tackling too. And he doesn't have that problem. We're really excited about his future as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, have to be excited. I think I can kind of talk as well about the future in general, because there is so much youth, and it's been great to be able to watch some of these guys grow up, and guys like Crater that kind of came into bigger roles and so on and so forth. And week by week, I think this defense, and maybe you can talk to this as well, but I feel like week by week we've really seen some big improvements out of this defense from maybe the performance against Davison, where they certainly had the edge in that one, and then throughout the year, I think you saw the defense finding a way to make a few more stops each game, and ultimately getting the stop that was needed against Caledonia, getting the stop that was needed last week. I think that's the main thing, is there's been a lot of growth, I think, unit-wide on this defense.
Yeah, I think our coaches do a great job getting these kids in spots. This year it's kind of been nice. I'm not coaching one of the position groups. We've got coaches that are running each group. Coach Judd coaching our linebackers does an outstanding job getting those kids ready to go, getting them locked in on their reads. And it's tough with a young group trying to get them to be disciplined and focus in on tight windows and seeing just their keys rather than getting lost in the big picture. And then this year, for the first time, we don't have a corners and a safeties coach. It's just been Coach Haney. He's done a great job getting our guys in a position where they know corner and safety. They're really cross-trained. And I think he's doing a fantastic job with a rotation, keeping those guys engaged, keeping those guys fresh, getting those athletes that are also playing offense in at the right times, but getting the other guys in when we need the stops, and just everybody's involved. It feels like it's a really cohesive unit, and I got to give a lot of love to my coaching staff for that. And then the kids obviously buying in, listening to their coaches, and just growing day by day, taking that coaching in. It's been fantastic to see. And when we started 5 sophomores on defense last year, started 5 sophomores on defense again this year. I don't know who else has done that, but it's exciting to know that we got all that talent coming back again next year, but they're all playing right now, ready to win at this moment. We got a big game this week that they're focused on.
Exactly. Perfect transition. It is Rockford week. Again, you've already seen this team once, and this Rockford team, I mean, I don't have to go into talking about how good they are on both sides of the football this year, but in particular, this offense led by Drake Irwin, Ryan Ahern at running back, and a great group of receivers. They can do a lot of different things, and they do a lot of different things in a lot of different ways, with some motion and with different ways to go play action and run the ball off of that, and just a little bit of everything out of this offense, really. Tell me, kind of summer, what are the keys you're looking at going into this game of how you guys can get a little bit more of an upper hand than what you had last time, which, by the way, 34 to this team was honestly one of the best defensive performances anyone's had against them this year. So, keeping that in mind as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're a great team. They're undefeated for a reason. I don't think they've lost a regular season game in 4 years. Like, that doesn't happen by accident. They're talented, no doubt about it. Quarterback's going to throw the ball well. They got about 7 different receivers they'll run out that can do it. 2 different running backs that are elite level defensive players as well. You can make all the excuses you want. At the end of the day, if you want to win, you got to go get stops. That's the name of the game. And I think the biggest thing is going to be to trust your keys, have eyes in the right spots, and we got to play together as a unit. No one guy is going to go make the play that wins the game. It's got to be one down at a time. Be great situationally. When you got an opportunity to get off the field, you got to get off. And, when there's opportunities, they had a fumbled snap, for example, that we got to go recover it. We have to take advantage of those opportunities. But, we're not scared of them by any means. I see a lot made of. They have 100 and some kids on varsity and this and that. And that's tremendous to be proud of. We're both going to put 11 on the field and we got to go play ball. That's all there is to it. I trust our kids. I love our kids, and our kids are going to go give them the best game they've had all year.
All right, that sounds great. I'm fired up now, Coach.
Let's do it.
I'm certainly we'll be rooting for you guys from afar for sure. Good luck out there Friday night. Thank you so much for your time tonight, Coach.
Yeah, we appreciate all the coverage you do for these boys. Love everything that you guys do. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs. It's our pleasure. Defensive coordinator K.J. Landis here on Game Night. All right, welcome back to Game Night. Nate Chandler here, and the Tailgate Report. Thanks again to Coach Landis. Always love to have him on. As I said at the end of the interview, he fired me up for sure. I think the outline is there, and I liked what he said, and we'll get into a little bit more with the Grandville Rockford preview. But he kind of highlights how there's been a lot made of the amount of kids Rockford has and what this roster has, and so forth. I mean, we're probably part of the problem making a lot of it. I think we've made that comment a couple of times. So, but he said to some extent, they're not scared of them, and they're gonna trust what they can do. And I think, and we'll get into this later in this segment, when you look at the games Rockford has played this year, there's only one team they didn't run off the field in the first half. I'll say that much now. So, just put it out there in the ether, just whatever. Yeah. All right, last Friday. Holy crap. It was, and Coach Landis talked about it. We talked about it. It was the ultimate example of normally when you talk about survive and advance in the basketball postseason, it was that in the football postseason.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a game where, Hudsonville played better than Grandville, almost start to finish.
Yeah.
But they looked up at the end at the scoreboard and they lost. Mm-hmm. And they didn't turn it over. They didn't make any specifically huge mistake, Hudsonville, that is, and they lost. And I think that says a lot about the makeup of this Grandville team, because we've said that a couple times now. Think back to the Caledonia game included, maybe even the first Hudsonville game a little bit. Games where Grandville didn't necessarily dominate start to finish. They didn't necessarily play better for most of the game. Yet you look at the scoreboard at the end, and they won. And that's the first place to start with this game.
Yeah, I think so. I think a night where, Hudsonville, to their credit, played a strong game all night long. I think, a lot
was their best shot.
It was their best shot. I think they kind of stuck to the basics of what they needed to do. Had a pretty good game plan coming into it off of the first matchup against Granville. It turned out to be a much different style of game than what the first go-around was. But I think you see the Granville team and the response down. You're in the third quarter against a rival like that and in a tough situation, and to kind of battle back down 21-7 and to be able to come back and win that football game. And when there was aspects that they were getting beat physically for most of the night, 3 quarters at least, and you could really argue into the fourth quarter too that Hudsonville was still making some plays and right up till the end. And the Eagles had a chance to win it. They did. The field goal that barely missed there, but I think a tough one for the Eagles side of it, definitely.
Barely missed. You're nice.
Okay. I'm saying narrowly missed because I have yet to see the angle from directly behind it. So it, from where we're at in the press box, it was like it could have been narrowly. I mean, it definitely wasn't good, but no, I think a tough one for Hudsonville in that sense, to the point where.
And again, you're kicking. Sorry, but you're kicking into the wind, into the rain.
Sloppy night, yeah.
Again, and it's. We'll talk about kind of play calling decisions, as well a little bit from both coaches. It's one where it's like, was playing for the field goal the call, because you were putting your junior kicker in a tough spot there.
Yeah, I think, I guess we'll get into it. Is the play calling leading up to that is kind of, it seemed like they were maybe going for the field goal the whole way. It was kind of tough because it was a situation where they're moving the football again, like they had most of the night. Quarterback power run was kind of what they were leaning towards. There had been a lot of Fox earlier in the game. Their running back just running through guys, and they'd moved the ball pretty effectively. I mean, you've got a running back that had over 200 yards. The quarterback was starting to find some room on the ground as well, and kind of get into the red zone, just outside of the red zone, and you start to go back to the trick formation that you saw earlier in the game, and then they ended up just being a quarterback run off of it, but Grandville not fooled by it. It's just one of those things where they'd been pretty much sticking to 2 play calls the entire night that were working, got them into the situation that they were in against a team like Grandville, and then when you need it the most, they kind of turned away from it. And it's just one of those things that if it turns out, you go to that formation and you get a touchdown off of it, you look like a genius. And when you run the quarterback power and the D-line swallows you up at the line of scrimmage, and now you're kicking a field goal on a night it wasn't the best to be kicking a field goal, it's a lot easier to look back and say that, what was going on there. But
right, especially because the rain and wind picked up right at the end, or right kind of that third quarter, right in time for us to have to pick everything up in the rain.
Yeah,
as
of course,
typically
always.
As things always happen. Let's kind of break down some of the key moments from this game, then we'll move on because we've got a lot to break down for this week, obviously. There's one moment where this ball game changed, and it was the X factor of all X factors. Young Mr. Sadinsky, we haven't seen him for 5 weeks, 4 weeks, however many weeks it's been. We haven't seen him for longer because he got hurt in the game that we weren't doing. So we haven't seen Easton for a while, and all of a sudden, he wasn't using the first half, and we kind of heard like he's coming back this week during practice, and there's it's been a kind of a he's a gutsy kid that I think they have to protect from himself sometimes, and so forth. And they were going to just try to do it with the other running back group, and let's see if we need him to some extent. Well, they needed him, and they put him in. And on the first time he's touched the football in 5 weeks, he went 70 yards to the house. That was the moment in which everything changed, because it was the energy in that stadium was done. Grandville had gotten upset, was the vibe everywhere. And that happened, and all of a sudden, bang. Everything changed. The explosiveness is back. You've added, whatever, and they've got so many other good backs, but he just has that game breaker type ability. All of a sudden, bang, it just happens. He's still not feeling 100%. You can tell on that run. He probably finishes up 15 yards past defenders normally, and I think he only finishes 5 yards up on the defenders there. But then that gets parlayed into Coach Stego, making, I think, the very smart call to go for 2, knowing that he would have had to go for 2 next time then, and the percentages with Grandville's offense, they're going to go 1 of 2 on the 2-point conversions. Very smart call to go for 2. They go for it. They get it. That, of course, that 2-play sequence, the 70-yard touchdown into the 2-point conversion, not to overstate it because there were a lot of big moments, that won the game. That was the game. Yeah,
no doubt. I think if Sadinsky had been for sure no-go in that game, you're looking at a completely different outcome to the momentum that brought, and those couple snaps right there to where the offense had only put up 7 points. You're halfway through the third quarter. Hudsonville's just going up 2 scores, and the energy was a weird energy. It was one where you're exactly right, where it kind of felt like the Bulldogs were it's gonna be they were still in it, of course, but to the point where it kind of felt like things were slipping away, and you're starting to ask the questions of what's going on, and are looking ahead to Rockford. You never know, but in that one play right there, Sadinsky gets a handoff, and suddenly the momentum completely shifts, and you got a player that can change the game with a big play down the field like that. To Jaden Terry all night long had been getting a lot of carries, and he was doing everything he could, but it's a situation where you can only run the same play and the same look so many times before Hudsonville is just gonna. They're gonna make you do something else besides that. The fullback trap really wasn't there most of the night. Kopko was having some issues getting going the inside of the Hudsonville defense, and Haney out there as well. It was, a bruiser of a running back, and it was doing some good 3rd and 4th down runs. But that big play down the field that Sadinsky brings that you saw those couple weeks before he got hurt, just immediately out there and provides that big play threat that maybe the Eagles team wasn't seeing until that point.
I mean, how do you game plan? You're already game planning for Jaden Terry. You're already game planning for a kid that's trending towards being a Power 5 running back prospect. Mm-hmm. You already have to game plan for him. Now you have to game plan for Stadinsky. Then you have the grinder of Haney. It's as they get healthier, you're starting to see the dangerous nature of this team going forward. And then after that, the defense gets their stop. They realistically get 2 stops if you include the missed field goal, which we'll talk about that final drive in a moment. But then they get their stop in the 3rd quarter. Goes back to the offense. The offense pretty quickly moves it down the field. And then, you talked about him. Tank had 2 touchdowns again. Big night for him. Both the touchdown runs for Jaden were very similar. Stretch plays right, where he just outran the corner. Their plays were 80, 90% plus of running backs probably don't score there. But he's got that edge around the corner when he turns on the jets that just running back to the high school level, especially sophomores, they don't have that edge. He had it a couple times. He dove past defenders into the end zone, and on the second one in particular, able to speed his way in, and ultimately after the extra point, go up 22-21 and win it. But it was that nose for the end zone that Jaden Terry had that made the difference on both of those scoring plays.
Yeah, definitely. I think, a lot of the times too, earlier in the season, Terry finding the end zone from a couple yards out, and that's very impressive too. But these couple runs, 20 plus yards, to the fact where you're not having to play in a condensed field there in the red zone, which the Bulldogs have handled pretty well all season long. So there's, not a ton of concern there. But of course, anytime you get a longer run like that goes for a touchdown, and getting some lead blocking out there as well. Of course, we talked all season long about Jaden's ability to make guys miss and outrun them, and the way that he kind of makes things difficult to defend even on the perimeter when he gets there, because he can turn it upfield and he can run through guys, or he can just run around you too. But also some blocking out on the outside. I think one of the plays that the second touchdown run there, Kopko getting out in front and sealing the edge and getting a block, and on a night where the yardage maybe wasn't there for Kopko to get out there and make a block like that, and I think that's huge too, on a touchdown there that ended up winning the game. But yeah, another impressive night for Jaden Terry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Jaden, who else going to them? Jaden, Naraki, Wiley, and Connolly are all going to Michigan this weekend for the Purdue game as well. So just more about the bright. No one cares about the future right now. The future doesn't matter past Friday. But talking about bright future, all those guys, juniors or underclassmen, even sophomores, and they're on their way to the big house on Friday or on Saturday. Yes, it just shows the talent. Final drive in Hudsonville. This is where we can kind of get into things. I'm not a football genius. It became pretty simple the way they were calling that game. When they were most successful in the first half, they ran the same formation. They ran 2 wide receivers. They ran tight end and a wing back, stacked them on one strong side, and they ran Bryce Fox up the middle. Every once in a while, maybe, kind of gap schemed over guard. But genuinely, they were dive plays. They were right downhill run plays. Yep. They started mixing up with some quarterback power run with Baker thrown in there. But for the most part, outside of a couple trick plays, it was simple. Final drive, they kind of went back to the bread and butter. Like you said, there was some quarterback power run, but it felt like Fox started touching the ball quite a bit more on that very final drive again. And then you get to 3rd and 7. With the ball into Grandville territory. Of course, they trust the leg of their field goal kicker. Munoz was very good even on the difficult night for kicking. And by the way, I think this was a factor on that kick slightly. Grandville's been very good at getting pressure on kicks all year long. Like, they haven't blocked one yet, they blocked? Well, Caledonia was... I don't think they blocked one, but Caledonia had some snap problem. Whatever. The pressure was there. But, 3rd and 7, they're running it down Granville's throat, but of course, Grandville just got 2 straight stops on the power run, so you're thinking maybe they'll stop it. And they go to that get-out formation. They, have got one of their linemen along with the backup quarterback, Van Lake, all the way out wide. They decided to kind of play off of that, and they just quarterback power run straight into the box, get shut down, go to the field goal. I think there's been a lot of discussion in Hudsonville circles. I think after that game, with how some different things maybe kind of went down, I think at the end of the day, though, I think it's one of those things where you just got stopped twice in a row. I think I can see what the coaching staff was thinking. You got stopped twice in a row in the power run game. Grandville's seen this look from us a couple times. They know the tendency. Let's run off the tendency. And then we still trust the leg of our kicker and then our defense to stop Grandville in the minute 50 that's remaining. I think I understand it, but also I understand where some fans maybe come away Hudsonville-wise with a bad taste in their mouth from the perspective of why didn't we power run it 2 more times, because we probably would have gotten 7 yards. And to that I say, I can see either side, and that's why I'm certainly not going to be one to lean what way I would have gone. It's why I'm up in the broadcast booth, not one box over. But that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Or all of that coming together.
No doubt, yeah. I mean, you can see the logic there. I think it definitely, they'd set that up early in the game, you said, with that throw to the guy, Van Lake lined up way behind the line of scrimmage there, and kind of felt like they were setting something up. That's usually something where, you got more than one design off from that, and you're not just going to throw it back there and run it, kind of a strange play one time. And so, I mean, it was kind of felt like they had that in the back pocket at some point, and, of course, going to it there with the game on the line. And yeah, I mean, it kind of got at it a little earlier, where it's one of the things. If it works out, it looks great, and it didn't. But I think, it's looking back again, hindsight,
right?
2020. It's one of those things where all night long they'd stuck to that. They were committed to not putting the ball in the air. Outside of a couple of those plays where it was from starting quarterback to backup quarterback, and it kind of a trick play feel to it. And so they were not going to put it, not going to throw the ball. So you're keeping it on the ground. What are you going to do? Just got stopped a couple times. I think earlier in the game, they had a couple situations where, Fox had been stopped at the line of scrimmage or a short gain on first and second down, and they had some third and longs, and they stuck to the ground. They stuck to the power run game, and it worked. They'd converted on it multiple times to the point where it felt like the Bulldogs, I'm sure, were getting frustrated that they felt like they should be getting off the field. And even though it was third down in a longer situation where you maybe not expecting to run the football, the Eagles were converting on it. So, I think the easy thing to say looking back is that, you got 2 shots at it. You pick up a couple yards on third down, makes it much more difficult, or at least much more of a thought of if you're going to kick the field goal, or if if it's 4th and 3, 4th and 4, maybe you try to run it again, try to get it in the end zone. You had enough time, over a minute left, so it wasn't like kicking a field goal because the time was expiring. So, there's lots of ways you can go back and change the way that plays out. But I think, either way, there's questions about with the way it ended there.
It was a near. I mean, the thing is, you can say execution-wise, that was a near perfect drive. They took 11 minutes almost off the clock, and it was near perfect. And if they make the field goal, it is perfect. If there's one thing you can maybe say Hudsonville did not execute on, it's the fact that they didn't have any timeouts remaining.
Yeah.
And it's the fact that it was sometimes setting up some of those trick plays and setting up the different looks. They had some communication issues, and I saw their coaches' boxes were right next to us, and they were scrambling during some of those moments, having to burn all 3 timeouts because, again, there's 150 left. So if that happens and you have 1 or 2 of your timeouts left, then you force Grandville to have to run plays. You have a chance to get the ball back with a chance to spread it down the field and do something. Instead, Grandville was able to kneel it. So if there's one point, I think, in the execution from Hudsonville where we're looking for 22-21 in the playoffs, you're looking at razor-thin execution points. That's probably going to be the point that I would look at. I think that's enough of this game because we could go for a lot longer, breaking down each drive in ad nauseum, just because there was so much in this contest to look at. But we've got 2 games this week. Let's start with the game that we aren't doing, but our audience cares more about. That is Grandville Rockford. All right. So game 1, 34-13. So with that said, like I just said, the game script wasn't terrible for Grandville. It was probably the best game script anyone has had this year against Rockford. Muskegon was down $1 billion right away. Caledonia was down $1 billion right away. Mona Shores was down $1 billion right away. Grandville was not. Grandville was down 1 score into the third quarter. And they were picking up, I think Coach Landis talked about it, they were picking up a Rockford fumble away from flipping possession one more time, getting a stop, getting a turnover away from flipping things, getting one more touchdown in the first half away from flipping things even and keeping pace. That's where we'll start, is Rockford is the favorite. For obvious reasons. And they're playing it at the TED. So keep all of that in mind. However, of course, we broke the story of the electronic communications last week. But at the end of the day, Grandville is not as much of an underdog as the bulk of the Rockford paid-for West Michigan media will tell you.
Yeah, I think that's, of all the teams, I think this is what you're getting at, is that of all the teams to get a second shot at Rockford or to have a shot at Rockford, Grandville is the one that has the rival built into it. So, it's typically a close game in that sense. And with the team that knows each other pretty well, a team that has kind of got the different philosophy offensively and kind of has some ideas defensively of what they want to do to try to correct things. And considering that the first matchup showed signs of life and positivity, that there's definitely areas that, you change a couple things or change the approach a little bit there, and suddenly you're looking at a different game. And before you know it, now Rockford's in a dogfight that they haven't been in all season long and down the stretch. And, who knows what the weather is going to be like this Friday night. But
we're praying for snow.
Yeah. So, that'll be a factor, no doubt. But I think there's definitely hope for the Bulldogs and the fact that they could pull off the upset. And this thing's, it's far from over in the sense of it before it starts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, with that said, I feel like we need to do a service to the team right here. This is Coach Deagle and Coach whoever else. If you're trying to get the guys rallied up, you can cut it like here. Okay, so you can cut it like now. And what we're going to do, or after I finish my diatribe, is let's give some bulletin board material so they can play us in the locker room.
All right.
So cut it here. Rockford's going to kick your butt. There's nothing the Bulldogs can do to win this game. Rockford's bigger, stronger, meaner, tougher. You even lost us. I mean, the boys got no chance, right, Chandler? I
agree. Yeah, I mean, it took a sloppy game and for them to keep it somewhat close.
Too logical.
Within 3 scores. The offense had the worst night of the season, only scored 13 points. Rockford's kind of dominated the rivalry a little bit in the last couple of years. Yep. It's not looking good.
They haven't lost a regular season game since 2020. They only lose tight playoff games. Can't be done. You even lost us. All right, end scene. Now let me go back to telling you why I think Grandville actually has a really good chance to win this game.
Okay.
Actually. Like I said, you look at every team Rockford's played this year. Muskegon. Rockford's up 21-0 immediately. Mm-hmm. Defense made. Now, the Muskegon game was weird because there was all the scoring in the first quarter, then no one scored the rest of the way. So, Muskegon game. They blew out Mona Shores start to finish, which we'll talk about where Muskegon and Mona Shores are versus each other and the fact that I'm hoping it's a really close game. I think it's going to be like the last game they played closer than the final score, but we'll see. Caledonia over right away, and Rockford just put their foot down against Caledonia, who's a team that many would say has an offense and has a coaching style that can match up with Rockford. They're playing many of the similar philosophies in terms of the power spread and the way that they set defensively. Caledonia's got multiple D1, senior prospects. But it was Grandville that stayed in the game, that stuck to the game plan, that had a chance. And, yes, like you said, the weather played a factor, but also Grandville's a weird T team where they're so fast and they're so high-flying that, actually when the game is a little bit sloppier, they somehow actually are better too. You don't see T teams that just score 40 points per game and that's their strength is the offense, but that's true of this team. There was a game a couple years ago when Grandville did score 40-something on Rockford. I don't know. I'm just saying. Yes, again, Rockford should be the favorite, and they have a good chance to win this game. I've already said I think they'll lose to Davison, but then everyone's waiting for the number 5 team in the country. I saw the latest, I think it was Max Preps rankings. Number 5 team in the country in Belleville. That's a public school. Public school. Public program. Even that much more impressive. All kids within their district of Belleville. Yeah.
No recruiting directors
or anything. No recruiting directors. Same thing can be said for Rockford.
Correct.
Of course.
Yeah.
All kids in that. Well, I should be careful because any D1 school, but we're going to just stick to the bit. I like to stick to the bit. You know, all from the area, all whatever. Tap, tap, tap. Back to back to back. Regardless, that's waiting for them. But still, I don't even know where I was going before that digression. I truly think Grandville has a chance to win this game. And I think one of the places it starts is going to start on defense. And Coach Landis said it. There's no excuses. We have to get stops. And I think, yes, getting stops is one thing, but Rockford's tough to get stops on. They have to get turnovers. I think forcing a turnover or two will be the key to this football game. I don't know if you agree, but that's really where I think it comes down to. I think Grandville's offense does look better this time than last time. I think they've got some tricks up their sleeve. If the weather is better, they'll be able to try to throw the ball better at the same time. It'll be cold. But I think it's defensively. I think, yes, if you can get stops, you get stops. But I think the easiest way to stop Rockford is to potentially force turnovers. They had one that they couldn't execute on last time with a fumbled snap. I think that's what it's going to come down to. Yeah,
I think definitely. Last time going into this game, we kind of talked about it that you're looking for your defense. You got to come away with a turnover or two would be perfect. If you get two, I think, of course, the option there to try to get a 3-and-out or stop on a turnover on downs is always there. But I think realistically, this Rockford team, they get a couple cracks at you like that, and then they're probably going to convert on a high percentage of them. That's just kind of the offense that they have and the playmakers that they have. And so I think you're kind of looking at, situations where, there's a reception down the field and you're laying a hit and getting a fumble or, picking a pass off down the field and mixing up some coverage defensively or whatever you got to do. But I think the turnover, they're going to need one. And it's been a defense that's found a way to find them when they needed them. It's been a lot of times, down in their own red zone. And when the field is compressed a little bit, they're trying to come up with something and they've been able to come away with some interceptions and some opportunities there. And so I think it's going to be another game of you need to find one or two of those and you're going to be feeling pretty good giving your offense a couple more possessions. Yeah, we just touched on it. I think looking at this game in terms of Grandville needing a dynamically called game on offense, what does that mean? That maybe means different formations, but that means different looks offensively. Of course, if Easton Sinski is healthy and all of a sudden you've got 4 backs with 4, plus you add in Moody, even 5 backs, and they like Morales too, the sophomore that came up in the last game of the year. But especially that core 4, which is a term you like, but that core 4 that they have that all have very different attributes to them that you can mix and match and do things with, and again, depending on the weather, maybe a chance to throw the ball. I mean, Rockford had guys in Cash's face all night long, but a chance to throw better. It's going to be one of those games. How I kind of wrote it is like, I don't think you're going to be able to slowly grind the ball 5 yards at a time in this game. If you can, that's a big bonus, and throw out what we're saying next. Yeah. If you're able to ride Haney and Terry 4 yards at a time, kind of like they did against Caledonia, then ignore this. But otherwise, I think it's going to have to be a pretty dynamic X's and O's offensive performance to break things out. Because, listen, Randy Vanderveen knows the T as well as anyone seems to know the T as a defensive coordinator. So, you're going to have to find ways to do it a little different. Definitely. I think, this is the time of year when you look back at some of those games against Grand Haven and you see some of those different formations. And, I don't, again, we kind of, get pretty excited about seeing that stuff. I know you love to see it, but I think it's not a game where the offense is going to completely change, and it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be that, for 4 quarters, it's running those formations out there. And, maybe they won't even use it more than a couple of times if that. But it's a thing where you kind of need to mix it up, because just going to the basics, Rockford's shown they can stop it. And I think they kind of know the play call. They kind of know what the ideal offense looks like for the Bulldogs. They know if you stop the run, if you get 1 or 2 yards on first and second down, you got 3rd and long. They know the play action pass or the rollout's coming. And it's one of those things too where you don't want to get too away from what your offense is and what you've been all season long, because that's your strength. But it's one of those things where Rockford knows what you want to do. You're going to have to mix up the sequencing a little bit, because if you just kind of go to what the bread and butter is and kind of know you're going to play right into what the Rams are expecting. It reminds me of the fall of 2020. So that was the year in which Grandville won 2 more games but lost the conference. Yes. No one's forgotten when Rockford happened to not play 2 of the best teams and still won the conference, even though Grandville had more wins in conference.
I digress. Rockford pretty comfortably, like 21-3, won the first game that year. Maybe 21. Did they get one touch? I can't remember. But Grandville's offense didn't move it. And they stayed pretty...
28-8.
28-8. Okay, there you go. I had the roughly.
You were close, yep.
Grandville stayed pretty... If I remember that game, they stayed pretty much in the T. Because that was the year that they ran a lot of double wing and flex bone stuff. And they stayed pretty much in the T, and they kind of kept it whatever. And it almost felt like they knew we're going to have to see them again. Let's not show too much. And I almost feel like that happened last time a little bit, first time out. Because I was expecting when we were sitting here doing the show and watching them that we were going to see a lot of, potentially a lot of different stuff mixed in, and I don't know if we ever saw any of it. And all of a sudden then they come back for the playoff game, it was triple overtime, and everyone knows about that game. There was more stuff mixed in. I remember one drive that was all double wing even mixed in there that they scored on. I think the touchdown play to tie the game to Marcel. Touchdown Marcel Love was even one of my great squeaks that I've had on these calls over the years. That even I think maybe came out of one of those looks. And I think it could be a little bit of that where it's you don't want to throw away the OK Right Championship. They didn't do that for sure. But also I feel like there is a chance that there still is a little bit more. We'll see. That's up their sleeve. Kind of last note on this game before we move into Muskegon-Mona Shores, and this is almost like the opposite. If the coaches didn't like our last if they don't want to take the negative diatribe, it depends on what they want out of us. We're here doing a public service. The next one is almost a little bit of a coach speak, in which I think Grandville, you talked about it's a rivalry game, it's got that built in. Grandville's in a unique position to embrace a massive underdog role where they still believe in themselves as what they are, because they've still proven so much this year, but they are still underdogs, in which you'll get plenty of chatter about people that call it the wing tee, that don't even know what the offense is, that get all mad about it this time of year, that they can't win and they can't whatever, they can't come from behind. Well, guess what? They came from behind last week to win. And all these different things will say, and that, they already lost to Rockford, and, some of what you said of the recent history, whatever, you'll hear all that. But it's they have a chance to look themselves in the mirror and say, oh, we already beat Caledonia this year. They're the reigning runners-up in the state. And they just hung bleeping 72 points in the first round of the playoffs on a good Portage Northern team. So, with all that said, there's a real chance, boys, if you're watching us, to look in the mirror and say, no one except for Nate and Chandler believe in us. And there's a reason why they believe in us. We've been there. We've seen every game. We know what this team can do. We know the guts they have. And that's why Grandville is going to beat Rockford Friday night. I feel it.
Calling it.
I'm calling it.
Going against your bracket.
I want to call it. Remember what happened in the bracket?
Yep.
I was setting, I'm going to say that the refs are not going to mess it up at the end. The end of my diatribe, the end of our segment. Grandville will beat Rockford. I can feel it. I can't wait till this gets clipped if they don't, but I can feel it. Grandville beats Rockford.
All right.
Make it happen, boys. We believe in you. We will be watching from afar at historic Hackley Stadium, Muskegon and Mona Shores, Chandler. I love this football game. Mm-hmm. This is... honestly, outside of Grandville Rockford, which we haven't done in 12 years, it feels like, this is my favorite football game in West Michigan. It's my favorite offense, two of my favorite teams, my favorite brands. This is arguably my favorite stadium because of the historic nature of it and the energy and the atmosphere. I can't even imagine what it's going to be like in a district playoff game, which they've played very few times because they've normally been in different divisions. I love this football game, and I cannot wait, praying that the internet is okay because sometimes there's problems there. But I cannot wait to get to Hackley Friday night. I love this game.
Yeah, I do too. I think when you're looking across all of West Michigan and close to all across the state for that matter, when you look at the games that we have interest in and then some of the rivalries out there, if you can't do Rockford, Grandville, I think this is the rivalry that's right up there. Again, it's a lot of the same factors. It's the playoffs. It's the district championship. It's two teams that have played each other already. two teams that have a lot of history between each other and that have state championships in the recent history as well. So you kind of know how much this game means and what it could mean for whoever wins as to how far they can go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, it's going to start with, these are a couple Tony and Niece disciple coaches, obviously, and coaching staffs, and Fairfield and Koziak leading their respective teams at Muskegon versus Muskegon. They both do it a little differently this year, I think, and this is true of the last couple years. Mona Shores is a little bit more the classic pistol Muskegon with 4 or 3 wide, kind of like running things out of the veer in that look. Muskegon's gone a little bit more, almost to what Ferris State has gone to, more of the sidecar, the tight shotgun looks, and they're even running a little bit of, we'll kind of get to it, but some split back type stuff this year because they've got a couple dynamic runners. But that's it. We've said it before. It's my favorite. It's one of your favorite offenses because it's a triple option. It's exciting. It's dynamic. You get different looks. It's from the pistol. You can do a lot of different things out of it. It's old school while still being very cutting edge. I mean, the Baltimore Ravens, this year a little bit less, but the Ravens have run it the last few years. It's a great game from that context, and it's Muskegon's run game is elite as always this year. Mona Shores has kind of had the lean pass game a little bit more with some of the pieces they have. It is to watch two coaches that have come from the exact same tree, like they're like the main branches off the same tree. Watch them go head to head and try to beat each other with the same systems, really on both sides of the ball. Man, it's fascinating. We saw it last year. The first game of the year, it was 21-21 before Muskegon ran away. Last year, Mona Shores was winning by a couple scores until Muskegon ran away. And the game we did, obviously I get really excited talking about this game because it's a fascinating chess match. It's not just a chess match, though, because there's an old school element to these offenses. It's a slugfest, but there's a chess match built in.
Yeah, it's really interesting, when you talk about, you've got essentially the same offense, but the variations that they have and the different personnel, the slight difference in personnel and playmakers that they have and kind of what they utilize and what they're trying to do. I think there's still some pretty vast differences between them, even though it's essentially the same idealistic offense. And so I think, in my opinion, one of the most fun offenses to watch. I think it's one of the hardest to defend against when you've got playmakers, and both of these teams have playmakers. I think you've got quarterbacks, you got running backs, they've got wide receivers that can run the ball and also can be down the field threats. And so I think, just to see them kind of go back and forth and be able to watch those two offenses in the same game go head to head against each other. And of course, when you've got coaches that know each other that well and they know they know each other's offense probably as well as they know their own, because it is their own essentially. So it's really interesting when those two go head to head.
Yeah, I mean, these are the guys. If you're a football coach in Missouri or something, and you want to get into learning how to run the ski gun or the Shogun pistol option, these are two of the guys that you would call them up. If Tony Anise isn't available or Steven Anise isn't available, you're going to call one of these guys up to learn how to run it. Let's look at some of the pieces on these teams this year. Of course, Muskegon, it starts with Mackay Guy. They're incredible third-year senior quarterback who does so many things, especially with his legs. A little bit smaller guy, 5'9", 160 pounds or so. We've seen him on the past. Obviously, we saw him on the basketball court last year with all the Muskegon coverage we did. And then you look at the electricity out of these runners. Destin Piggy, the slot back, who they move into the backfield in some split back looks along with Jacob Price. Price is a speed-power mix. He played some linebacker last year. He's moved more to safety this year. There's a dynamic level there, but Piggy in particular. Piggy had a run last week that kind of made its rounds on social media where he broke 12 tackles and he went 70 yards. This team, they're 300 pounds across the entire line. I've never seen their offensive line. They were at the same scrimmage at Belleville, at Grandville, and they went head-to-head with that Belleville line of 4 D1 guys, and Muskegon's line's bigger. And it's okay. So, that's where it starts. Great up front, great whatever, but guys like Piggy, electric, Guy, hard-nosed quarterback, smart above all else, Price, tough runner. they have the perfect complementary pieces for this offense that's been getting rolling down the stretch.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, anytime you got size like that along the offensive line, it's gonna be a huge advantage for your team. And then when you combine that with those playmakers that they've got in the backfield, and if any one of those three guys, if they were the featured, if they were the only guy, that offense would still be really good because they could just lean on them and they can make plays on their own. But when you've got the three of them, it could be going any different direction, could be an option, could be there's different movements going across the field, and it can just be really difficult to defend because who are you going to pick, who are you going to key in on, which one are you going to try to stop, which one are you trying to take away. It's very difficult to defend, and those three guys now, I can remember a few years back watching, and when they're young guys, and now to think of they're all experienced, they've been there for a while.
All 3 or 4 year players.
Yeah, and so it's really the perfect combination for the Big Reds, and they're looking to ride that.
Yeah, in a slow start, but we said it. We were on the cutting edge of saying Muskegon will be fine. I believe that was one of the first things we said week 2 talking about them. Like, the Rockford loss, I think, was a little bit of I don't want to call it a fluke, but I think they played 10 times, and it's closer to 5-5 just because of the turnovers early and some of the mistakes that were made. De La Salle, okay, I'm going to give you that. That's a problem for anybody when you get to the other side. Coach Roan's team, I was going to say also not recruited, but they do recruit.
Yeah.
Whatever. They have recruited for a long time. When they're not getting their program shut down. They've rebounded well.
Yeah.
They've cleaned it up and they've rebounded well.
Yep.
We saw them before pre-rebound.
That's right.
They still were good then.
They still were good.
Mona Shores. We're filming this show a little later than we normally do, the way that our schedule worked out. I was concerned that I was going to be out of my game and just start saying stuff.
Yep.
On the edge.
Okay. We've got the MGN After Dark.
Yeah, the MGN After Dark has begun. Okay. So Mona Shores. So you talk about the Muskegon run game, the electricity, the guys they have. Mona Shores is in a little bit of they have only 34 kids coming into the year on their varsity roster, which I think is true, and I think Grandville, obviously down. There's a lot of teams down. I think, frankly, it goes back to if you're backtracking what year was the COVID year, backtracks, this year's senior class. So I think there's some math that makes sense in a lot of ways why a lot of teams outside of Rockford are down in numbers this year. Any team that's drawing mostly from inside their own district are down, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Pittman, though, we saw him last year as a sophomore. Big, tough kid, smart kid, but also his ability to throw the ball down the field. He's got a guy like Micah Carafel, who's a very good deep shot guy. A couple other kind of new first-year guys stepping up in the pass game. Tamarion Stewart, a big sophomore, is going to be by his senior year, he's going to be up. He and Jaden maybe right there neck and neck for two of the best running backs, in the state. Jaden has had a little bit more success early on, but I think Stewart's special. He's 215 pounds, 6 foot as a sophomore. Blocks really well too. I think Mona Shores, the X factor is going to be the pass game. Yep. And when you looked at the first game where they kept pace with Muskegon, it was 21-21 into the third quarter, or I think it was second, whatever quarter, whenever they were still tied. It was their ability to throw the ball down the field, and they seem to have an ability to bring an X factor from the pass game that allows for them to keep up with Muskegon, especially if they get a stop on Muskegon's run game and they can kind of quickly score it. That's sort of things are kind of X factors. We normally in this game we always talk about pistol option versus pistol option run game. It's the pass game from Mona Shores is where the real X factor comes in this game, I think.
Yeah, I think just the 1,000-foot view, the main difference between the two teams is Muskegon's going to run the ball and then try to pass off of that if they need to, and Mona Shores is a little bit the opposite, where they're throwing the ball, they're taking deep shots down the field, going to back you up and then try to power run off from that, or if they need to, and when the situation calls for it. And so I think that's just the major differences between the two offenses, and of course the Muskegon, the playmakers that we talked about, very shifty guys that can run the football and play into that offense. And then on the Mona Shores side of it, you got some stronger, bigger guys that they've got some vertical threats down the field, some big bodies that you can throw the football up to. You got a quarterback that can stand in the pocket, can still run the ball effectively too when needs to. But you kind of see the size at the playmaker and the skill positions that maybe the Muskegon team doesn't have, and so there's the difference there, even though it's relatively the same position wise.
Yeah. Both defenses solid too, especially Muskegon's defense. That's That's the one thing you can't say is Muskegon, they gave up 27 to Rockford, 40 to De La Salle, and remember that 27 to Rockford is the least that has been given up against Rockford this year. But after that, they haven't allowed more than 21 in any game, and that was Mona Shores. Back-to-back shutouts, 6 total points allowed in the last 3 games from the Muskegon defense. Now they've played the Wyoming run of the conference, kind of to close, but still. Completely shutting down a team is still completely shutting down a team, even when they're scripting plays and whatever early, and that's what they've done. And big team up front for Mona Shores. They match up well. We'll see. It'll be fun. 6:30 Friday night, MichiganSportsRadio.com/MGN, MGN YouTube page. Listen live page on Michigan Sports Radio, wherever you normally consume. We'll be live there. We'll also, of course, be linking to and checking in on Grandville Rockford all night. What a segment. Nothing controversial came out of that.
No.
We'll step aside when we come back. We're kind of going to wrap up with just a look around the area. We'll do kind of a playoff recap. There's not too much to talk about by way of upsets here. We'll briefly talk about our brackets, which are dead tied after the first round. Yeah, we'll do it. We'll be right back.
Can you identify your number one personal trait? The thing that you do better than most others? If not, this may be a good time to think this through. If you're really good at writing, then why use the phone? If you're great on the phone, why use email? If you have exceptional human relation skills, why sit back and let others lead? I'm Randy Hansen, president of Centennial Securities Company. Playing to our strengths is something we do very well at Centennial. And if you're already a customer, you know what I mean. If not, isn't it about time?
Member SIPC and FIN.
Hey everyone, Nate Dreyer from MGN, and MGN merch now available for purchase, and we have got a ton of options. Here's where you find the new MGN shop. Go to MichiganGameNight.com. Many of you have probably been there before. Click on the shop merch tab. Many of you have probably been to the MGN page on Michigan Sports Radio. Click on the Buy MGN merch tab. It'll take you here. We've partnered with Teespring, neat company that allows for us to have a lot of different shirt designs. They'll print them, they'll make them, they'll ship them out to you. So a neat way that allows us to have a lot of offerings. We've got a ton of really cool t-shirts, hats, snapback, dad hats, beanie hats, water bottles, more t-shirts, more sweatshirts, just a ton of options. Really, just a ton of options that you're going to be able to look through and find exactly what you may want. We've done what we can, like I said, with Teespring to try to stack this thing. We'll have plenty more options that we'll put up on social media, but make sure you check it out. All right, welcome back to the Tailgate Report. Nate Chandler. All right, let's kind of make our way around the area. As I alluded to, our brackets are dead even. We both got one wrong. First, I want to make an amendment. I was doing some more research in the moments after we filled out the bracket about West Bloomfield.
Yeah.
So I knew they were good. I didn't, frankly, this is why this show is what it is we do a good job of research on like what we have to know, but sometimes we'll let the imagination run wild and make statements. I didn't know that West Bloomfield had like 5 Big Ten players on their defense. And I didn't look at how they lost some of the games and whatever. So I would like to propose an amendment that you're going to shut down, but I'm going to veto, that I have now retroactively moved West Bloomfield into my Final Four.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've retroactively, because I decided it midweek before we started, even though it was after the show.
Really?
So I've made a decision that I've moved them ahead. Now, let's say they lose to Eisenhower.
Okay.
Then we revert back.
Then you go back. Okay. You've got.
But I would like to retroactively. If you were to follow what we did, though, I got that wrong. You got Grand Blanc wrong.
Okay.
That's all. Besides that, there was no upset. The only upset was Grand Blanc, which frankly I think Grand Blanc should have been favored in. You didn't, but you were wrong.
Yeah.
So, take that.
Can I go back and retroactively say I want to switch that game, or?
No, because you're doing it now.
I'm doing it now. Okay.
I did it. I clearly
But if I said that
I clearly said as we walked out the door that night, like, oh, geez, I didn't see this about West Bloomfield.
Okay. Just try to get a clarification for the rules. So
there aren't.
But if I want to make a change for this upcoming week, if I submit it before Friday, I'm good.
No, you can't.
Okay.
I only can.
Okay, that makes sense.
I'm running it. I have the brackets.
Okay.
Also, if Grandville upsets Rockford,
You're claiming that one?
I claim it. Only I get it because I am Captain Grant. I'm Grandville's most fired up alum that didn't attend the school.
Yep.
I've spent more years working at Grandville than I did going to school at any other place.
Yeah.
So
Same.
that's actually also true, but still. So I get credit for if Grandville. I think I should. I feel like I've stuck my neck. By the way, Grandville beat Caledonia. What are we doing? We just because they beat Portage Northern by a lot. Grandville won their playoff game against a D1 team too. If only we already had a game in which, for our rankings...
That would make things a lot easier if they had played each other.
Right, if only Grandville and Caledonia had played each other, and we could take a look at that and say, I wonder if the team that won that should be ranked higher than the other. Not 2 spots lower than the other, about to get taken off the graphic by North Muskegon.
Yeah, that's one of those things I guess we'll just never know.
We'll just never know how Grandville and Caledonia would stack up this year. It's too bad. Are you ready to talk more?
I'm ready.
I mean, we kind of are. I mean, we're dancing around the playoffs. So here's D1. Things that stand out. Davison is going to kick everyone's ass. Bleep that. Rockford beat... Oh, hang on. Lifetime producer. Rockford beat West Ottawa. Grandville beat Hudsonville. We talked about that already. The other games, of course... I mean, we darn near, Chandler. We darn near almost went to this game. If it weren't 3 hours away, and if it wasn't packed in that press box, I'm sure this might be the state championship game.
It could be. It's really tempting. That would be a good one to go and cover, but that's a bit of a drive. Yeah,
but we'll be at Davison next week as Grandville takes on Davison in that one. So that's D1. How about D2? A lot of blowouts. Muskegon. Again, the Mona Shores Reese Puffer game was close, but Reese Puffer's better than a lot of people have given them credit for. Of course, this is the one to watch. Turns out that the D2 and D3 teams from the Kalamazoo area aren't as good as the OK Red and the OK White and the Grand Rapids D1 teams. Isn't that interesting?
That's very interesting.
That is fascinating to me. East Lansing in there. And, of course, the fascinating thing, the main thing here is that we likely aren't going to get the Caledonia Byron Center Muskegon Mona Shores potential semi. That would be a semi matchup, not a regional matchup. So that could be crazy. I mean, that'll be, again, maybe even played at the TED or something. Yeah. Who knows? I don't know. Do you have any other serious thoughts on D2? No.
Nothing crazy, no.
This segment mostly is the Nate just says things segment. Gaylord won, Petoskey won. That's a good win for Petoskey, having to travel up to Marquette and picking up a round one.
Wow.
Win. They're in the same Marquette. I was looking. Marquette, what's it, the Big North, whatever conference is. They've come into that conference with I don't know if Cadillac's in, but Petoskey and all those schools. What kind of deal was that?
Yeah.
Having to make a high school team travel 4 hours
to play a conference game.
Right, and I'd assume they're playing Saturday. I don't even know then. I probably just said something. I'll bet you there's something in place that how these things are working. They're whatever that makes complete sense, and I just
maybe
talked out of my butt a little bit, but wouldn't be the first time, would it? Mount Pleasant won. Forest Hills Central has to go to Mount Pleasant. That was a game because I don't know if our Michigan Sports Radio team's still doing one game I thought about, but I'm not going to Mount Pleasant. So, some interesting things to do in Mount Pleasant. You could, that was in East Lansing, but you could go on the sidelines. And you could scout the other team from the sidelines.
We could help them out. Yeah.
The guy's crazy, and that's the legal defense. He's crazy. Coopersville, defensive slugfest. A lot of people were surprised by that. I was not.
No.
I really like Coopersville. I think Coopersville's winning this weekend. There's your surprise note, because Zeeland West has been battling some injuries, even though they won that game by a lot. There's my ups, along with Grandville Rockford. There's my pick. Coopersville over Zeeland West. How do you feel about that?
I actually like that pick.
Like
yeah.
that?
Yeah, I think I've liked Zeeland West most of the season, but I do think Coopersville has been underrated for what they've done. I think the defense is legit. You see that this past week against East Grand Rapids.
D4. Whitehall 1. Big Rapids 1. I hope
How about South Christian getting some revenge on Wayland
they
there?
did. Yep. I hope the Big Rapids hockey dad that I ran into at that Grandville Big Rapids game that wanted to fight me because I told him that the refs weren't as bad as he was shouting into my crowd mic the whole game. Hopefully he's happy about that. Fun fact. If you see the crowd mic, don't cuss at the refs into the crowd mic. I will say something to you.
We could have like one of those video montages. I think that's what you need to make, is of like people yelling into the crowd mic and then you turning on the people yelling into the crowd mic.
Right, it has happened before.
Yeah, multiple times.
There's a certain team that wears purple, lower east part of Grand Rapids, that we've done a lot of games for in the past. They had some fans last year in a game that I talked to about cussing into the crowd mic, clearly. Yeah.
Nice conversation.
Nice conversation. And normally the conversation goes, I am so sorry. I didn't know that because normally I say, like, is that how you want to represent your community? Like, because I don't want to shut off the crowd mic. I want the crowd mic because it helps the broadcast quality. This is a public service announcement.
Yeah.
This is an important thing.
Help your local broadcasters.
Yes.
Don't yell into the mic.
Don't yell. Don't be the cowbell guy into the crowd mic either.
Or sit away from the mic if you do.
Yeah,
that's a nice background. It's nice.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah, just not right next to it.
Yes. And normally it's, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I did not know. Mm-hmm. Big Rapids guys, some other people in the past, no.
Some double down. They are very glad. They're like, no, they need to know the refs suck. These guys getting paid $50 tonight to be here to make sure this game happens. The whole internet needs to know that I think they are terrible. You go get them. Sports Dads of America. Fight the good fight.
Forest Hills Eastern and South Christian. That will actually be interesting-ish. Forest Hills Eastern's pretty big. They can kind of grind with you up front. We'll see. Because they were closest the first time they played, right? I want to say.
Yeah, for 3 quarters or so.
So, yeah. D5 as the show just continues to go off the rails. Comstock Park kept it close. Again, that's a joke. No one's going to keep it. Well, there's one team that's going to keep it close with them, and they're going to play in the next round. And it's that the state championship game is Catholic Central West Catholic. So, yeah. Oak Ridge won.
Yeah.
Remember last year, district championship week, when we were at Oak Ridge in the rain?
That's right.
Wasn't that fun?
That was a lot of fun.
And then we're into divisions that we don't cover as much. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We made it. End of another show here. 6:30 Friday night. MichiganSportsRadio.com/MGN. MichiganGameNight.com. Michigan Game Night YouTube page. Listen live page on Michigan Sports Radio, wherever you may listen. We will have Muskegon Mona Shores from historic Heckley Stadium. And then Grandville Rockford will be the upset of the year from the TED. Brock Conkle and the Rockford crew. How much better will that make it for Grandville fans with the Rockford crew on the call as the Rams go down?
They might be less enthusiastic than you are.
I'd be a lot less. Could you imagine me on the call in that game? Like we're a hometown radio call by nature, obviously, but like we know how to keep it in check and when not to, and when it's a good game. Out the window. So we'll see everyone next week for this show as well. If Grandville does win, buckle up and we'll see everyone at Davison. But until then, we'll see everyone Friday night, 6:30. Muskegon, Mona Shores, Grandville, Rockford. Find it all and much, much more. MichiganSportsRadio.com. We'll have all of it. He is Chandler Timmer. I am Nate Dreyer. This is the Tailgate Report. Still not canceled. We'll see you next time.